What is the Seed Vault?
The Svalbard Global Seed Vault is the backup to the global system of conservation of crop diversity. It is where collections go to make sure that their collections are safe in the future. So they make a safety backup, like a safety deposit box in a bank.
So, Brian, who's funding it?
The Seed Vault was built and funded by the Norwegian government in 2008. The annual operating costs of the Seed Vault are provided by the Crop Trust and the Norwegian government. The work of maintaining the collection is managed by the Nordic Gene Bank, Nordgen.
Did they come up with the idea?
A long time ago, the Nordic Gene Bank actually stored their crop collection in an abandoned cave mine up in Svalbard. The idea of conserving and backing up diversity has been around for 100 or so years, even more. And this concept of the Seed Vault was thought about by many people, but the reason why the Seed Vault in Longyearbyen now exists is because of a man named Kerry Fowler. He was the director of the Crop Trust, and he recognized that we needed this backup. And so he approached the Norwegian government to create this Seed Vault in Norway, and that's how it all started.
Who's the Crop Trust?
The Crop Trust is an international organization working to conserve crop diversity worldwide. We are working to create and fund a global system for the conservation of crop diversity in crop collections worldwide.
Now, an interesting thing, but why was Norway chosen?
Svalbard is an interesting choice for the location of the vault, and it has many reasons as to why it's there. One being that there is this Svalbard Treaty, which allows for anybody to basically be in the area, meaning that you can have seeds from North Korea and South Korea on the same shelf. Other reasons include the fact that it's cold. It's the farthest north you can fly in a commercial airline. And in the permafrost, in the mountain, you have a consistent temperature of -7 degrees Celsius. The optimal storage conditions for seeds for long-term conservation is -18 degrees Celsius. So you already have a degree of cold that you don't have to bring down through artificial cold, which makes it a good place to do that in comparison to a +40-degree weather in the Philippines.
Having picked the ideal spot, how do you actually choose the seeds that you're going to store?
Around the world, there are about 1,750 collections of crop diversity. Not all of them contain unique varieties. These collections contain about 7 million varieties, but only 2 to 2.5 of these are unique. So the Seed Vault is meant to store the unique diversity of crops. So in order to deposit to the Seed Vaults, collections are required to deposit unique varieties. And these crops are only for food security.
So it's only agricultural crops?
There is one box in the Seed Vault that contains flora and fauna, and that is from the local Svalbard area. The rest of the collection in the Seed Vault is for agricultural crops.
Why one box?
The one box of flora and fauna from Svalbard was chosen as a consideration for the fact that the Seed Vault is located on this far northern archipelago in Longyearbyen. And it was a collection that the university put together, and it was kind of a symbolic representation of diversity and life in Svalbard.
How up to date are you as far as the vault is concerned?
The Seed Vault gets deposits from collections 3 times a year, and currently contains more than 830,000 different samples. Obviously, we would like to get it to the full 2 to 2.5 unique varieties in the world, but that's a long process.
Now, the varieties, you've got some basic ones like rice, I guess, but what about, is there anything sort of GM?
So I'll start with the rice question. In the world, there are about 200,000 varieties of rice. These are all unique varieties, and the majority of them are stored inside the Seed Vaults. The Seed Vault contains this natural diversity from across the world, about 830,000, 40,000 varieties. Norwegian law prohibits GM crops and food from entering their borders. So likewise, the Seed Vault does not allow GM crops.
Any withdrawals been made from the bank so far?
In 2015, we saw the first seed retrieval from the Seed Vault. This was a collection called the International Center for Agricultural Research in the Dry Areas, and they held their collection in Aleppo, Syria. Because of the civil strife, the collection was not able to maintain the work required of it. Collections in the world are not only meant to hold as a backup, but they're actually meant to work with scientists and breeders. They're meant to send and share the material so that we can improve agriculture for the future. They were unable in the conditions in Aleppo, Syria now, or in the past 5 years, to really do their job as effectively as possible. Now, they were doing a great job. They were still sending out shipments of seeds, with war going on. But it wasn't optimal. And so ICARDA decided that it was time for them to reestablish their collection in a different country that they can more safely resume their activities. So in September of 2015, they received about 38,000 varieties from the seed vault that they had deposited, because only those who deposit can retrieve their seeds, and brought them to Morocco and Lebanon to restart their collection.
Is it a concern that there has been a withdrawal?
Of course, we don't want that to happen. We don't want seeds to be withdrawn because it means something's bad happened in the world. But it proves the point that the seed vaults exist for a reason, and we need it. And it proves the point that this work is extremely important. And before the seed vaults, this work didn't get the credit it deserved. People are working on a daily basis to make sure that the food on your plate remains into the future. And the seed vault provides that safety net.
What role do you see for the future?
So the collections around the world are doing the actual work on a day-to-day basis. They're working with scientists and breeders to develop new crops. But as shown in Syria, things can happen. There are natural disasters, there's war, anything could happen to these collections. And the seed vault is integral in making sure that we don't lose these options for the future. Each single seed might provide a trait that can be used to adapt to a new condition, whether it's a pest and disease, drought, climate change, anything. And the seed vault provides this backup for our food security system.
So what's the Crop Trust involvement?
The Crop Trust is working to create this global system and fund it. We were built in 2004 to establish an endowment fund that would provide the necessary funding that these collections around the world need on a yearly basis. Because something as simple as a power outage or not paying the electricity bill can result in the loss of diversity and an extinction event. So our job is to make sure that these collections are secure. So we are working to raise money to do this. We're very happy that just this year, New Zealand made an announcement, a pledge of 2 million New Zealand dollars to the endowment. And we're working with countries around the world to raise that endowment fund.
Has New Zealand actually made a contribution as yet?
We will have a deposit to the Svalbard Global Seed Vault on Monday, the 23rd of May. It will become the first deposit by New Zealand. The Margot Ford Germplasm Center will deposit around 700 varieties of crops. Clover and ryegrass will be deposited by New Zealand. So we're very excited to welcome the first deposit by New Zealand.
So apart from Norway and New Zealand, what other countries are involved, if any?
As of right now, we have 66 different institutions that have deposited to the seed vaults. We'd obviously like that number to grow, but that's at times difficult. We require funding, political interference can occur, but the seeds in the seed vault have originated from every single country in the world. So we're getting there.
What else is the Crop Trust involved in?
While the Crop Trust is building this global system and working to manage and fund many of these collections around the world, we're also working to fill the gaps in the global system. There are crops growing in the wild in natural conditions without human influence that are the wild cousins of what is grown in our fields today. These crop wild relatives contain hardy traits that we can use to adapt our agriculture to the conditions we face in the future. So through a 10-year commitment from the Norwegian government, we are collecting, conserving, and using these crop wild relatives to improve our agriculture. And we're very excited about this. We have collecting agreements with nearly 20 countries, and we will be going out over the next 2 years and collecting this diversity, storing them in collections, eventually backing them up in the seed vaults, but also providing them to breeders so that they can use them to improve agriculture, to improve the crops that we have in our fields today against the rising temperatures, pests, and diseases, which these crops in the wild naturally are protecting against.
What about the United Nations? Do they have a role as far as the whole diversity is concerned?
The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals actually have a target in there in Goal 2 of ending hunger. 2.5 says by 2020, we should conserve the diversity and wild diversity of crops in the gene banks in the world, international, national, and regional collections. So this is a very good indication that the governments of the world recognize the importance of crop diversity and recognize the importance of using this diversity to adapt our agriculture and be able to feed our future despite climate change and despite the challenges of a rising population.